Hey, welcome to Deface the Currency. This is Frederick McCarty. We're recording here at the She event. I'm here with.
My name is Amy, and I am a life coach and a motivational speaker.
My name is Kimberlyn, and I am a real estate broker with Keller Williams, Indy Metro Northeast, and I am married.
So today we're having a conversation. We're going to explore. Let's see if we can come to a consensus of why are we having so many problems with relationships, and why are they falling apart and failing? And your relationship status?
I am single.
Okay. So you got a diverse panel here. You got married, single, divorced. Okay. So what's your guys' opinion on it? Just if you could name, let's just say, just summarize it. If you could say one thing that you think it was that contributed to marriage failures, what would you think it was, or where would you start?
So I feel that people rush into things too quickly and they like the idea of having a partner, but they like the idea of a relationship, they like the idea of a marriage, but then once they really get to know the person because they rush to put a title on it, do they even really like the person?
If I had to say one thing, it would be a lack of intimacy. Not so much physical intimacy, but spiritual and mental intimacy. They don't really get to know the person because liking the person can actually keep you together. Okay?
Right.
Having a best friend in your marriage and actually liking that person and understanding that person is what marriages lack.
I think if I summed it up, and I could say, which probably is just one of the main reasons why this podcast is even here, is I don't think people know who they are. So a lot of times, one of the I would always talk about, and I would give an example, and I would say, if I was looking at if we were in a cyclone, I say most people are kind of going around the cyclone, and they're always trying to give coordinates and perspectives of things, but it's kind of hard to do because they're moving as well as everything else, versus something that's centered and grounded in the middle. Regardless if everything's moving and chaotic around you, you always have this reference of self that you can see what's moving around you. So to relate that, I guess I'm just saying that I feel like as trends come in and out socially, I feel like people ride that wave. So in this trend, somebody's there, they're hot, they're the it person, but once that trend dies off, they're moving on to the next type thing. um I don't even know. I don't even know if relationships are even people even get into them for relationships anymore, for the long haul. And I think it's just that whole self-esteem thing. I think a lot of times, I don't know if you heard in the last one, I was saying that there's typically two types of relationships. There's relationships of where I say personal relationships, where I get to know somebody and I really like you. But then there's relationships where I like what you bring to the table. So what happens is I manage you enough to keep that. So what happens is I'm always managing this thing over here. So when you're about to run off, it's just I'm gonna be good for a little bit because I'm afraid of losing, that.
What you bring, what you
What you
offer.
do.
Yeah. So there's these relationships that tend to be personal and transactional, which, and I tell people, I don't think there's anything wrong with either or. It just whatever suits, whatever, I feel like whatever floats your boat. And I feel like that's one of the problems now is, um the transactional ones, I think people put such a negative spin on it that nobody wants to accept it. And I think if we were like, hey man, look, if you're cool and that person's cool and y'all have an agreement and that works for y'all, hey man, have at it. Be, you know what I'm saying, have at it. But understand the pros and cons of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have to be upfront and honest and communicate about what your wants and needs are, and be very transparent about that in the beginning
Yeah.
to make sure that it aligns.
Right. And is it sustainable? Is that what you're looking for? Or is it just the benefits? And like you said, if you agree on the benefits, then yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And when it comes to, when you talked about insecurity, that comes with, even in a marriage, you can know somebody. You're going to only get to know them at a certain level.
Mm-hmm.
But we all grow. We all change. Trends do come in. But what sustains the marriage is communication. And sometimes you're going to have up and downs.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that it all goes back to respect. And in unconditional love, which I don't believe we expect it enough from our spouses. And I'm not even sure half of us know what it is, what that really means.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, unconditional love means, if I can share,
Yeah. Please.
when I am in a low season, when I don't particularly like you, but I love you,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to judge me. You're still going to be there. You're still going to hold my hand. We may not even talk for a couple hours, a couple days, but we respect what we have.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to grow within the relationship. You're not going to have it all up front. You're not going to have that 100%, but you're going to have enough to know that maybe you can move forward, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. I've always looked at unconditional, and I've always said, like, I ask people, I say, like, what would you risk it all for? You know, and by risk it all, I say, like, you know, what is it that you would kind of just give everything up for this person? Let me rephrase this.
Okay.
Let me rephrase this, because I have a no compromise. I have a no compromise.
None.
Like
Okay. Zero tolerance.
And when I say no compromise, you know, people get mad. They be like, oh, what are you talking about? Like, no compromise. I'm like, when I say no compromise, and we have to first define what I mean as compromise.
Sure.
I think we all have different definitions.
Yeah.
So let me when I say compromise, I'm talking about doing something or being somewhere or whatever that I don't necessarily want to do. So some people
Okay.
say, like, if we're driving a car and we want to get something to eat, right? And I say, hey, I want to get some tacos, you know, and she's like, let's say she looks over and she says, well, you know, I want to get some pizza. And I'm like, oh, we can get some pizza. I don't consider that a compromise, because I'm okay getting pizza.
Right. Okay.
Now, if I'm like, yo, like, I'm craving some tacos. Like, my mouth is watering, you know what I'm saying? I want the tacos, steak tacos from so and so. And she's like, nah, take me to Illuminati's or something, you know. And I'm like, and we have to go. The thing that trips me out about that is, I'm like, hey man, how can you sit there and eat that pizza like knowing I really want tacos? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like, how are you enjoying
I do understand that.
How are you enjoying yourself knowing that, like, I'm not happy? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
I guess when I say, like, the compromise. So me, I look at a situation like that. Like, if I was dating, that'd be it. I'd be like, oh, she really gonna go Illuminati's, and not necessarily in a bad way. I just know this isn't somebody that I probably need to pursue a long term relationship with, because, you know, I feel like a compromise to me easy. Like, hey man, we can go to both places. Like, let's go get some tacos.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's easy. But there's this whole, like, I don't know, this whole takeover thing, and I think it's just socially driven that somebody's supposed to give in. You know what I'm saying? And
I think that's consideration. I think it's being considerate of, now if you say you craving tacos everybody understands what a crave is. That means you want them bad. You have a taste for them. Nothing else is going to satisfy you.
Right. Right.
So I understand that because I am 100% like that. And I'm not saying, and I'm going to get my tacos and you can do whatever it is you want to do. But I think that's, it may seem small, but I think when you look at those things in the beginning, you can also see long term where things are going to go. It may seem small, but it could be something more serious than tacos. Then they probably won't consider your feelings or know that that's going to make you happy.
It's a sign. I think in the beginning,
so.
the tacos are, it gives you an idea of how you're going to interact with that person in the long run.
Man, let me tell you, there was this so a friend of mine she was introducing me to one of her friends, right? And we were talking on the sidewalk, and there was like some geese like in some bushes, like they were kind of far, but we were close enough that he was like hissing because I don't know if it's male or female to sit on the eggs, but somebody was sitting on the egg, the other one was standing guard, and people were just getting close, and he was just getting some warning shots, So I was leaving, and I saw that my friend had left, so I turned around and was like, I'll wait for you until she comes back, right? And she was like, yeah, but you should like wait on this side of me, right? And I was like, you talking about closer to the goose, like I call them thug nuts, but I was like, you talking about closer to the goose, like he's already hissing, why would you put me in harm's way to protect you? So it's a small concept like that, you know what I'm saying, that I feel like I look at and it's like, oh yeah, this isn't probably somebody I would necessarily pursue because of that word, like that whole consideration thing. I feel like being able to look at the picture, you know what I'm saying, and know how to operate in that space rather than how you're supposed to operate towards me type thing. And it's little things, man. It's little things I feel like that end up manifesting itself. And I tell people all the time, like, the formulas are the same, the variables just change in each scenario. So when you see these little things, right, it might be little because the value to you might be smaller.
Right.
When that variable changes and now it's something that you value highly, now you kind of see it different, but it's the same concept.
Okay. So in that scenario, let me ask you this.
Talk to me.
In that scenario, you just met this person?
Yeah.
Okay. So she may have been thinking, okay, is he going to be my protector? Now, I get what you're saying. I completely understand why put me in harm's way. But for women, I believe we want to know that long term we're going to be protected.
Right.
So even if it's not you standing there, how about let's just go back inside,
Well, and I was just thinking, like, man, you could have just moved like a couple squares down. You know what I'm saying? Like,
or
and,
that.
You got both of us out of
yeah,
harm's
or
way.
that.
Both, so I look at that and I'm like, man, what happens if we're out somewhere, and like there's a situation brewing, and there's this.
That's why you got to know him.
So look.
Right.
So look,
So you got to know him.
And I hate it. I hate using this example, but I have to.
Okay.
But when people talk about like chivalry, right? And people put so much weight on something like, oh my God, like, he walked on like the street side, like, and I always laugh at that because I'd be like, hey man, who is this dude? Like, is he like the Incredible Hulk? Like a car jumps the curve? Like, what is he supposed to do? Like turn real quick and like catch it before it hits her? I was like, hey, look, man, look, let me tell you something. That truck comes over the curb, man. We're both.
True. That's
Yeah,
true.
you're right.
I
You're
feel
right.
like that may have been her test, though. But I do understand what you're saying because I do feel like it's like, let's move in a unit to keep both of us safe, not just one or the other.
So and I don't knock the train of thought. What I understand though is we don't see situations the same. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like that test. So and I feel like that's kind of a sign
Oh.
of when you really get a chance to, when you really know yourself and know who
Yes.
you are, that sensitivity of
Heightens.
when you get like, like when spider senses kick off, when
Yeah.
something happens, you know, you kind of really get a chance to see when somebody's disrupting your norm.
I
You know,
agree with
and,
that
and
1,000%.
again, you don't
Yep.
have to be mean, or you don't have to be. It's
Right.
just, this probably isn't something I'm going to pursue
Right. And yeah. And I think in
long term.
relationships too, what because we look at chivalry or you look at somebody else's relationship, what I believe too we don't realize is you can frame your own according to your likes, your comforts, your desires. And that's getting to know that person too. So you may not be the person that's going to walk on that side, but you can frame it yourself. It's not going to be their relationship. It's going to be y'all's relationship.
So I joke and I say a lot of times, man, people talk and they say, they say what a man is supposed to do, what a woman is supposed to do. And I was like, man, in the right situation, I hate that, because it's like
Right.
what happens is you never take into account what Frederick does, because what you're trying to do is you have this picture of what a guy is, and then you're trying to like
Push.
fit somebody in that
That
mold,
box.
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
And so what happens is in these kind of what happens in relationships now is you have like, somebody's trying to fit somebody in the mold, and either somebody's like rejecting that, or or somebody's like, like deforming themselves in some, or contorting themselves to try to fit.
And it's unnatural.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
not natural either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you get to frame your own.
And so one of the things that I say is I try my best not to. I'm not. I tell people I'm not in the business of right and wrong.
Right.
So if I look at a relationship and I'm like, a lot of times we be like, oh man, look at them, and we kind of like turn our nose up to it. And I'm like, hey, if that works for them and they're happy, that's cool. Now, the only thing that I would say is, do they at least understand the pros and cons of it? Because what happens is, I think people get in these situations, and when they don't pan out, they become like a victim. Sometimes, and some people get in relationships with a person for reasons outside of love. It didn't. They rolled the dice and they crapped out. And now they want. I kind of liken it to going to the casino, and I'm like, all in, all in, 22 red. And you roll the dice and it doesn't hit 22 red, and they go to take my money. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Nah, man, y'all, and you put it all in, and you would have been cool if you won.
Yeah.
But now that you lost, you want to try to rewrite. You want to try to rewrite the rules. You know what I'm saying? And you want to try to recover that. You know what I'm saying, by whatever means. So I think that's what happens a lot of times in relationships.
Oh yeah. We could probably talk for hours on this subject.
It is, man. It's there's so many different denominations of people
Yes.
that now, and I think that's one of the dangers of podcasts, and a lot of dangers of when people jump out and speak is, when somebody jumps out and talk, a lot of times they're talking about their particular thought process, and they're talking to a specific audience. And what happens is there's people that agree with that, and then there's people that disagree with it. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of where the conversation happens.
Right.
But what I tell people is, what we don't really hear a lot from, we don't hear from couples that are happy and just out here living, because they're just out there doing them, and they're not
That's
worried
right.
about trying to convince anybody of
That's real.
of their, like, why they're happy. They're
Right.
like, hey man, they're
That's real.
whatever it is they're doing, because they don't want anybody disrupting that, because they're good. So a lot of the stuff we hear, man, we're hearing I use like if I use an example, like if we were to ask a question and say we were asked a question about cheating, right? and people are going to have that. I don't even know how that's a like a
Question.
discussion.
Yeah.
You know, but there's going to be people that's going to say, hey, and I always say this: there's generally three types of people in every scenario.
Okay.
So you're going to have the people in that scenario that's going to say, I don't cheat. They're going to say, I don't cheat. You're going to have the people to say, hey, I got a lot of love to give, or whatever they say. And then you have these people that they cheat, but they want to look like they don't. So a lot of times, man, the conversations that we hear are the people that like they want the benefits of this, but they want the perception of that.
You know,
And that's that bucket. That's that bucket that we're always like.
yeah, that's insecurity. Because this is so real. I believe when you respect the person, this is just my opinion. And like you said, we all got different denominations. But let me tell you something. If you're going to move your cards and we in this and we respect each other, let me know you moving your cards just in case I want to move mine.
Right.
Because if the thing is, sometimes people can give it, and personally, I'm not into all that. But if I were, because there are open relationships, and I respect that if that's what you want and that's what you desire, and y'all have an understanding up front. But don't move your cards, because then it's really not considered cheating. But if you want it to look like what it's not, then there's some issues there.
Right.
And I'm not saying we don't all have issues, because we all have issues and we all have stuff. Nothing is perfect, but it can be your perfect.
Yeah.
And nobody can design that for you.
Yeah.
But cheaters, or whatever you want to call it, I think if you let the other person know, hey, and I know that's a really, really, really hard conversation. I truly believe if I felt like I was going to step out, none of us are perfect. I have not stepped out, but I can't say it hasn't been a thought. And that's just the reality of it. Now, Lord, I'm on. But this is just what it is. Because I believe people have those thoughts. But I respect my spouse enough to, I really feel like I would say, listen, I did it. Now, I'm saying that here, but I love him that much. And I respect him that much. And I feel like he really doesn't deserve for somebody else to come and tell him that. And that's just me and my denomination. And where we get to cheating comes in a lot, because what you think about is going to expand. And if you think about it over and over and over, you're going to end up doing it.
Yeah.
It's going to happen if you continue to think on it, because it's going to expand to where you're going to want to touch it, you're going to want to feel it, you're going to want to go.
Yeah.
The power of manifestation.
But we have the power to control our mind. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but we do have the power to control our mind. And it goes back to what you said in the beginning, knowing you. But do you really know you?
And everybody seems to think, if you were to ask people, I think most people believe that they know who they are. And I'm gonna tell
We
you,
grow. I don't.
I'm not. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that I do. Per
Right.
se.
I get that.
Because I still feel like I'm learning things. Again,
Yes.
being being divorced. I'm looking through a lens, and one of the things that I did, when my marriage ended, is I didn't put any blame on her.
Right.
I looked at me and my contribution and what could I have done.
Right.
Even if like I looked up and I said, you know what, at the end of the day, I just got in a relationship with the wrong person. I can't be mad at them because they were who they were.
Right.
I just expected maybe something different. So I can't be mad at somebody because I made the wrong decision. And I think once you think like that, then you learn how to make those corrections. Well, how do you go about not doing that again? You know what I'm saying? And then now you're starting over and you're kind of going back to the drawing board and you're learning things like that.
I think that, knowing yourself is always a constant journey. We're always going to
Sure.
learn more about ourselves, and we're always going to, grow. So that is an ever evolving relationship with self that we're going to be in. So I think that that is what is important, though, is that when the relationship doesn't work, we take it and we look at it and we examine it and say, okay, what is it about this relationship that I should have maybe, like you said, looked at in the beginning, and you really get to know yourself more. And I agree with what you said originally, that you become even more sensitive to others and what you'll tolerate and what you want once you know who you really are. So, if you don't mind me asking, did you feel looking back that you may have rushed into that because maybe you didn't know the person well enough that you married?
I think that I very much, I very much loved her, and one of the things that, and this is again things that I've learned going forward, and I tell my kids this: you're gonna fall in love with a lot of people in your life. Just setting the expectation. You're gonna fall in love with a lot of people. Doesn't mean you have to get necessarily in a relationship with them. And I felt like where I went wrong is I felt like in the back of my mind, I knew that it wasn't necessarily the ideal situation for me, but I thought out, but it was like I'm trying to be a good person,
Trying to do the right
and
thing.
then you start having, you start listening to other people,
Yep.
but and everybody's like, oh man, relationships are tough, and they're difficult, and you have to work through them, and we and I think now I'm kind of in the mindset where I'm like, not when you're with the right person, and I say that because what I did is I stepped away from relationships, and I was hanging out with my friend one day, and me and him were we were driving in the car, and I think we had probably argued about something maybe a couple of days ago, and we're in the car laughing, laughing and joking, and we were laughing about a scenario where we tried to go out, and it was a complete failure. Like it was. I mean, it went from like a high to a low. Me and this dude, we've thrown hands. You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
But regardless, through it all, you know what I'm saying. One of the things that we knew that at the end of the day, like it was, we genuinely cared about each other.
Yeah.
And even within some of the tough discussions that we have with each other, you know what I'm saying. And they're like tough, like very, very, very honest situations where we hold each other accountable, right? And I
Yes.
was like, you know, this is what a relationship should be like. This is what it should
Exactly.
feel like. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, man, if I'm honest, for some reason, when we talk about, everybody says, oh my God, like I'm dating my best friend, and I'm like, but for some reason, the people that we do that with never go through the channels that our friends have to go through. They operate off a
Should.
different set of rules. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So what happens is we like bring them into the organization, and then we fast track them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And
That's a problem.
and if you think about certain organizations, sometimes the best supervisors, the ones that are kind of like homegrown, they started from the bottom. They've learned, you know what I'm saying, they've
Yes.
learned the task. They
Yep.
know how to do this, they know how to do that. They're good with people, and you know what I'm saying, they ascend on their way up, rather than people that just come in, they don't know the work, you know what I'm
Yep.
saying, so they're micromanaging.
Yep.
Now they're just doing supervisor things, you know what I'm saying, instead of just
Leading.
being there, just doing the mission. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So I think that's one of the reasons why, like, honestly, like I tell people, I don't necessarily believe in the idea of like dating, because I feel like it's a fast track, and
Yeah.
it's one of those, like, if you think about it, I was like, as much as people date, it does not have a good success rate.
Right.
This is true. This is true.
dating
I know
is
people.
not an efficient process. It's just it's one of those things that it's just you do it in volume, and you eventually something sticks.
So what do you call it?
Right.
What do you do when you're trying to build a relationship?
I don't think you make an effort to build it. I think
Okay.
it's just because, I mean, so again,
Okay.
look at my friends, and I'm like, when I people thought like when they met me, they feel like I was arrogant. You know what I'm saying? And people they for some reason they feel like, man, I thought we was gonna have to fight or something. You know. So even our opinions when we started hanging out were different than what they are now.
Okay.
They've just naturally grown, and what happened, what you realize is you start hanging out with like people, and you get in these situations, and you look up and you're like, yo, I'm looking at my friend in this situation. Just naturally maybe they might know I have to do something. Like my buddy hits me up. He knows he's gonna be busy today, so he hits me up tomorrow. Yesterday, and was like, "Hey man, hey, kill it tomorrow." And it was simple. That's something like it's something small, but it's something that's a lot because it's there was nothing behind it. You can tell like it was just a general, thing. So those relationships, man, just take when you talk about like the natural, they do take time
They
Yes.
absolutely do.
to build
Yes.
because there's no expectation behind
Okay.
the action, so it's
Okay.
just natural and it's just embedded, and it just grows like that. So I tell people like, man, I would be cool like if I met somebody and it was like, hey, you wanna I hit them up and like, or they call me like, hey, you wanna go grocery shopping real quick, because I gotta grab some groceries. Pushing the cart through and just chopping it up and having conversation, because that's what I do in my just everyday life.
Okay.
I don't eat at Ruth's Chris all the time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So I don't understand why people be like, they'll be like, they meet and it's like, yeah, we went on a date to Ruth's Chris, and I'm
Yeah.
like, but you don't even eat there. Like, you don't even eat there every day. Like, nobody's ever sat there and be like, yo, man, I'm trying to get some of them mashed potatoes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Ruth's Chris.
They are
you
good
know,
though.
and go sit there alone. That's not what you do.
Yeah.
So what happens is already out the gate, you're already being somebody.
Trying to impress.
You're already being somebody that you're not, and you're kind of setting this,
Stage.
Tone.
Yeah.
this expectation,
Yeah.
and then once,
Yeah.
so then once the goal is completed, and you kind of want to relax. Now people saying things like, "Oh, you've changed,"
That's why it takes time.
Yeah.
That's why you shouldn't rush into it, because over time you're going to see that that's not what that person normally does. Over time, because people unfortunately don't operate like that. Society has made people believe that we want to impress this person, but we always want to put our best foot forward though too, and I think that's just a natural instinct. We want to bring our best to the situation, and so we do what we feel is best to impress that person, and then that doesn't last forever, and then people end up in situations and they're like, did I like the idea of it, did I like the experience of it, or did I really like the person?
My mom used to always say, you might as well be yourself up front because the real you is going to show up.
Yes.
And what I'm learning to do in a relationship that I think that's helped me tremendously, and we don't think about this enough, we don't practice being good in our relationships like we practice going to the gym to build our muscles.
Mhm.
We don't practice like being grateful for the things we love about that person, and it's really just a matter of gratitude. And like I practice getting up saying, hey, good morning, just small things, little things. It doesn't have to be anything major, but even the things that you know that they like.
Mhm.
I'm not saying you have to do this every day, but I'm saying practice to build the relationship even before you get into it.
Mhm.
If grocery shopping is something you do, which I think that's kind of cool, I would have never asked somebody on a date to the grocery store, but hey, you can build your own. You can build it exactly how you see it. And I can see, how I can see that building a relationship, because then you're going to know what food she likes, or you're going to know what food he likes, or you're going to know if he clips coupons, or you're going to know, it's going to, if you learn the lesson.
I told somebody there's
You
a
look
lot
for
you
the
could, there's a
lesson.
lot you could probably learn. You'd be like,
Yeah.
hey man, just like just chips all the time. You maybe be just chips and cookies,
Yeah.
And you really kind of get a sense of like who somebody is. But I always say,
Sure.
if I can walk through, if I would be able to walk through a grocery store, then everything else should be like icing on the cake, because that's just us. That's us being us. You know what I'm saying? There's no front to put on the grocery
That's
store.
true.
Who goes to the grocery store cool?
That's
like
true.
You know what I'm saying? Like
They might buy fresh flowers or
You
wine, and
know,
normally they wouldn't do that. So
hey man, who gets fitted up and puts on
who
like
knows?
stunner shades and gets puts perfume and lipstick on, you know, and goes and buys a salad and ingredients stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I think, like I said, I think one of the reasons why though it really does fall apart is one. I think one of the hardest things to do um, in the world is to look in the mirror, just because everybody wants to believe they're great.
Mm.
Everybody wants to be, and this is going to be repeated. Like this will probably be a repeated concept on this podcast. So I talk about living on a curve.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's my thing.
Okay. All right.
So, and if you understand like the curve in school, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, teacher comes in, you know, passes out the quiz. It's a 10-point quiz. To come back and grade it, be like, oh god, you know, highest person got a 5. So they curve it. You know, now the person with the 5 is now the A student, and everybody falls in line from that.
Yes.
I feel like that's kind of what's happening, especially with a lot of these relationship standards, is they're constantly being degraded, you know. And so what happens is you have these people that are these 5s that run around, and I'm not saying this in a demeaning way, but people that got 5 out of 10 on the quiz, you know what I'm saying, or in this concept, but they're being treated like an A because of their environment.
Mm.
But then once somebody
Mm-hmm.
comes in, you know, and hits that with a 9 or 10, that instantly changes. That all of a sudden these people that were A's and B's and were like great, outstanding in their you know what I'm saying, respect, are now like P and F's. You know what I'm saying? So now this person is the problem. And in society, one of the things what happens is we like we try to attack this person because this person is has messed up what's been working here. It's making me feel uneasy. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
so but I'm not the problem. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to like work to that standard. I don't need to study more. I don't need to put in more effort. You know, I don't need to like, you know, do my homework or, you know, things like that. I need to discredit this, you know, and I think we have a lot of that going on. And I feel like if you listen to a lot of like social media posts or social media things, I feel like that's what's happening just on a consistent basis. Boom, boom, boom. They're always trying to discredit that optimal position. You know what I'm saying? That's why I said like earlier when we talk about cheating, I don't understand why that's even why is that even a discussion? You know what I'm saying? Like who's even comfortable like saying that they do? You know, I mean
Yeah, I don't know.
we've kind of, you know, and again, you know, this isn't a knock, but I mean we've kind of gone from where like cheating used to be kind of like a taboo thing to like I think it's kind of like I think it's kind of cool now. It's just pretty much accepted now. You know what I'm saying?
Unfortunately,
Hey, people used to be like, you know,
Everybody ain't going.
not.
you know, it used to be one of those like
Again, if you move in your car, just let me know, because I might want to move mine too.
chill,
I've been
chill,
So
chill
it's
out.
probably not even the subject of, and I don't even know if they consider it cheating, because it's crazy the things I do see on social media. But to each his own. That people like this, they don't consider it cheating, but
But
at
it's
my
not
age group,
because it's
let me know if you're moving your chips so
you know
I
what I'm
can
saying,
move
because like
mine.
I said, it's I moved down and I've operated in this space. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So the norm
I
here
got you.
is set, and it's not until somebody comes and challenges that norm that
Right.
it becomes
True
a
that.
problem.
True.
So
So I've been cheated on before, and when you say let me know if you're moving your chips,
Yeah.
so I said that to him. I said, when you cheat on me and I am not aware of it, I mean, this was 15, 20 years ago, but when this happens, you're taking away my choice. I no longer have a choice. You take my options away from me. Where if you let me know what you're doing, then I can move accordingly. however I see fit.
Right.
But you do it behind my back, so then my options are limited, and that's not fair.
Man, let me tell you, when I was married, there was I didn't I don't I try to keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
And this was just my thought. I never and it was only because I had seen it, but I never wanted anybody to ever feel like they had one up on my wife. You know what I'm saying?
That's the part. That's the part right
So
there.
I never like
Yeah.
I never engaged in conversations. I never acted a certain way that
That's
somebody
respect.
could look at her and be like, yeah, like, you know.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So I
That's
didn't
respect.
That's respect.
and I just
A
think
100%.
but and I say that like, but I think I would do that for anybody. But and I've told her a lot of times. I said, man, my commitment to you isn't even about you. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
That's more like when I look in the mirror. You know what I'm saying? There's no way I can look in the mirror and be like, yeah, man. Not, I don't want to say like I'm like I'm saying this, I'm saying that, but I know, you know what I'm saying, in the back of my mind, this is why I'm doing this and I'm doing this. I think that's like a steady dose of like that's like a daily dose of like internal trauma, man. Like because you're always you're
Yeah.
always like the friction that you're always dealing with, the perception and
Internally.
reality, and you
Yeah.
have to manage that all the
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Work.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
work.
But I mean, it goes back to your value
I'm lazy.
system. It depends what your values are, though.
Well, good. If that's what we're gonna call it, that's good. Be lazy.
Right.
We
Be
prefer
more
you
lazy
lazy.
then. Right. But I mean, I think it depends. It's not a conflict of interest with self if your values aren't of that. I mean, so you're from what I hear you say, you have high morals and high standards and high values within you, and so that is not congruent with when you look in the mirror. That's not what you want to have to see. But unfortunately, not everybody operates like that. So they don't have a problem with it when they look at that person in the mirror. They might look in the mirror and say, "Yeah, I'm that dude."
Yeah, and but and like I said, there's so many things, man, that when you go in and you analyze it, when you sit there and you look at it, you kind of have to. It's not always necessarily. I mean, it's a person's choice, but a person can only choose based off maybe the options that they've probably been given, right? The reality that they've been given. I don't think that. I don't think that you know doing the right thing anymore is like well represented.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
True.
which let me think about it. Hey man, like drama TV is like the thing. It's everybody recognizing that, and one of the things that we've done is mentally we've kind of remapped our emotions where like that kind of makes people like salivate a little bit. Like you're like, oh my god, man, I gotta wait to see this next episode tomorrow. You get excited about that.
Yep.
And people be like, oh, that doesn't mean anything. I was like, so did you sit around and watch like a series on like child molestation or something like that? And they're like, oh god, no. And I said, what if you had that reaction? What if you had that reaction to like stepping out on your like your spouse? So what if you had that reaction to putting your hands on people? Or what if you had that reaction to just treating somebody less than what they are? You know what I'm saying? I feel like we be in a little bit better position, but what happens is we've accepted
It's true.
so much and all these different exceptions that we
They need to stop doing that.
yeah. But
Truly.
unfortunately, it's a
It's some
a-
roots there
It
that
is.
needs.
It absolutely is.
we got to dig them up.
It's some roots that need to be pulled because I don't think people necessarily want to be in a position like that. Unfortunately, sometimes you just don't know. You don't even know. It goes back to knowing who you are. And I liked what you said about, and I think that's something we constantly grow into is who we are, because I'm not the same person I was 3 months ago mentally, because I'm practicing on growing and learning more about me.
So me and Brooke was talking about this yesterday, and then we were talking about maturity. and I was describing, and I was like, I think maturity, I think maturity plays a big factor into a lot of that.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
but nobody really knows what maturity is. So I was like,
True.
let's talk about it.
True.
And I was like,
Uh-huh.
maturity to me is being able in any given situation, being able to understand the different options or different scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Marvel fan, so like there's a scene when there's a scene when Doctor Strange was like, there was this fight going on, and Doctor Strange was off to the side, what I'm saying, and he was going through like all the scenarios, what I'm saying, possible scenarios that can happen, what I'm saying, and he was going to act accordingly to the one that produced the outcome that he wanted, and I was like, man, that's maturity right there. Being able to see the situation, analyze it properly, and then see all the possible outcomes. You know what I'm saying? And then make a decision, right or wrong, but make a decision based off of that.
Yeah.
The scary thing to me is this. I think I think people get in scenarios and situations and they make decisions, but they are unable to see all the possibilities. So sometimes when it doesn't play out the way that for some reason they thought it was going to play
Yeah.
out, they start freestyle. You know what I'm saying? Their backs against the wall because they couldn't plan for it because they didn't see it coming.
Right.
So when we start
Right.
talking about maturity,
Right.
maturity doesn't necessarily come with age. I feel like
Right.
maturity comes with being able to see all these different possibilities.
It's true.
Now, again, when we talk about, that's why even with my kids, I don't necessarily teach the variables of them. I teach like the concepts and formulas. So if I understand, I forgot what scenario we used yesterday. But another one I use is we talked about. I was having a conversation with a friend, and we were talking about like there was I think somebody sent a video of I think somebody hit somebody's like daughter. The guy was like go kill this guy, and everybody was like, yeah, man, like I killed that dude too, and I was like, wait, time out. I understand, what I'm saying, emotion. Even socially, that's what you're supposed to do. But let's think about this. If you go do that, you get caught. I said, now your daughter loses you because you're in jail. You know what I'm saying? Your spouse loses your income, so now life is going to be hard for her. You know what I'm saying? Even with whatever your daughter just went through, it's going to multiply because now you just like extended this situation.
Yeah.
This situation that just happened, and now that's going to have like trauma going forward for her on top of like you not being around, and it just compounds. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, while that sounds cool, it's
And manly.
so I said but I think that because a lot of times when we sit down and we have those conversations, a lot of times that option isn't thrown out there. A lot of people they don't come up on it themselves, so it's not thrown out there enough for somebody to even contemplate.
That's true.
They don't know what they don't know.
Right. So
Or we make other people's mistakes by not knowing, not understanding.
It sounds like emotional maturity to me. I mean, we have to know when to control our emotions, and that does need to be. I feel like that's something that needs to be taught more for sure, because a lot of people aren't emotionally intelligent, and even
Oh, yeah, I
and
know.
I'll hate to say, I mean, women are huge when it comes to emotions, and and you have that stigma that women operate out of emotions, women are emotional creatures, but still, even being an emotional creature, you can still learn to control your emotion. And in a situation like you were describing, the slap to his daughter would have, or the hit or whatever it was to his daughter, would be inconsequential compared to if he did go kill that dude. It doesn't
let me ask you a question.
tips the scales.
Do you think women are more emotional than men?
Well, first of all, we're labeled.
It depends on the person.
Us calling this emotion, that's a label. Okay. Okay.
It is.
Number one.
Definitely.
Do we are we more expressive? Yes. Yes. To answer your question, yes.
I think it depends on the person. I don't think you can put it on a gender, but that's what society has
This
said.
is true. And I've labeled emotions, but I remember the Holy Spirit told me, and this is no joke, stay out of emotions and stay in motion. Because emotions can stop you, can stump you, can cause you to act out and make decisions that are against your better judgment.
Mm-hmm.
But
For sure.
I definitely don't believe in making acting or making decisions based off emotions. I feel like
yeah.
so I say this. I don't feel that anybody is more emotional than anybody else because
Okay.
like I said, people make a statement and say like, men aren't supposed to cry, and I'm like, why do they have tear ducts? Like
Right?
Good
True
question.
that.
Good question. I'm gonna use that one
I was
instead of
like,
Jesus wept, but
and I was like, so why do they have tear ducts? But but there are situations where men don't cry, so you have to kind of look back and you say, man, let's look at it for what it is. Let's look at the picture and say, man, so this is obviously a function that is there that doesn't get utilized. So you have to feel that somewhere along the line,
Mm.
there was people are able to turn off like natural functions. Like we're able to kind of whatever however it goes into, but we can go from a state where and we see it, kids, boys, babies. It's not like the first thing a baby's supposed to do when they come out is supposed to cry. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not like boys come out like
Right.
so somewhere along the line, right?
My gosh, that's interesting.
We look up and we're like, yo, man, like, you don't ever cry, and it's like, nah, bro. And so you have to think like, there's to me, there's trauma and there's influence behind that. But what we understand, then we have to know and understand, then emotions can be remapped, kind of like a keyboard, right? Like somebody can program a keyboard that when I press the G, P comes up. You know what I'm saying? You can do that. So sometimes we can do that with emotions. So that's why I would tell people sometimes that when we use emotions and we say like, whenever you're do the things that make you happy, it's dangerous, because you have to understand, man, there are people that like being being mischievous to people make them happy.
Right.
Yeah.
Being deceitful makes them happy. From whatever traumas they've had have been remapped, that it's almost like
That gives them pleasure.
it's almost like somebody coming to you and saying like, whatever makes you happy, being like, stop doing that. You're gonna be like, what are you talking about? Just as real as that emotion is to you, it is to them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's why like daily things are compounding, and that's why they're going like kind of in a downward downward like trend, is because as we blindly start having these conversations, we're okaying things that we don't necessarily mean to okay when we're talking, right? So emotions, I stick away from, because I feel like before you can even start discussing emotions, you have to know you. You know what I'm saying? Because it's kind of like I say anger. To me, the equivalent to anger, I don't know if you like if you ever try to search a website and it comes up and it's like 404 error, website not found. I said anger is kind of like that, where when you're in a state of anger, there is something in front of you that your brain is trying to process that it cannot make that connection and find the answer. And that's where that emotion kind of comes from. So socially, what we've learned is when I get angry, I start punching things, or I go and I do this. When really what we need to do is stop and slow down and say, well, what is it that I don't understand?
Yep.
And let me figure that piece out. And
Yes.
sometimes it could be something as simple as I don't understand why this person just did this to me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I mean,
Because that's what emotions are for.
Mhm.
They're there to teach us things. They're there to guide us, and so we're really supposed to tune into them
Mhm.
instead of acting upon them.
Yeah.
To figure out, okay, I'm feeling this way, so what is it this emotion is trying to teach me,
Mhm.
and allow it to lead us.
Right.
Right.
Right. And you
Right.
know, joy and happiness comes from. I think joy. I always say happiness and joy comes from a whatever it is. It is a successful. It is successfully ran through your mind, your flow chart. You know, it went from beginning to end without a hiccup. You know, for whatever that is. You know, after this this podcast this day, I'll probably be happy because I'm like, whew, a success. You know, everything worked out. We got it done. We had met some good people, had some good conversation. That's gonna bring me joy. Now, you know, earlier when we were having like audio problems, you know,
Frustration.
starting to perspire a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's interesting that you say that about happiness, because I just got done listening to. I took a happiness life coaching course, but then I also listened to research about happiness.
Okay.
And the three components of happiness are satisfaction, enjoyment, and wow, I just drew a blank. Satisfaction, enjoyment, and people.
Okay.
And so it's in an enjoyment aspect of it, you can break each one down,
Mm-hmm.
and then it goes from like the enjoyment part of it is people and places
Mm-hmm.
and creating memories.
Right.
So it's like the experiences, like when you go on vacation and you know, are with your family and you're creating those memories. That is not all of happiness, but it's a component to happiness. So it's interesting that you said that. But yeah, but joy, satisfaction, enjoyment, and other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the mind is a crazy thing,
It's a
I think
powerful thing.
and I think as you go through life, I think the more you understand it,
Yeah.
the easier it is. The easier it is to navigate. And honestly, personally, I feel like the more in tune you kind of get with yourself, man, you start realizing how irrelevant a lot of
Yes.
this external stuff really is. I tell people
true.
I don't really focus on what other people are doing so much because I'm genuinely always trying to outdo myself. And I know, like, I'll be honest, like, man, I have an attendance problem. I mean, not an attendance problem. I have somebody says, hey, man, it starts at 8. I'll probably be there at 8:30. You know what I'm saying? And I understand that about myself. I don't make excuses and say, oh, man, CPT. And like, that's like me kind of like trying to like get out of the accountability piece of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I know that's who I am. Now, I'll be honest, that is not on my priority list. That is low on my priority list because I just have other things that are just more important.
Right.
Once I start knocking some of those things down, you know what I'm saying, I can start taking into account and start looking at some of those things because I do understand that you know what I'm saying, timeliness affects not just you, but it affects other people because other people depend on that. So if you're supposed to be here at a certain time, there's probably a reason for it. I understand that. And I'm comfortable saying, like, I get it, but I'm not there yet. You know what I'm saying? It's on my to-do list. And for some reason, as life goes, for some reason it keeps getting knocked down. And who knows, you know what I'm saying? There may be something that comes into play that bumps that up, bumps that up the list where now I have to work on it.
Better start practicing.
Where I gotta be like, all right, let me start setting my watch like 15 minutes early. You know what I'm saying?
30 minutes. 30 minutes.
But I sit
It's
there and
interesting.
I think about it and I laugh because I was like, I'd be in the car and I'd be like, and I do it every time. I'd be like, hey man, why do I think I can get anywhere within 10 minutes, man? You know what I'm saying? Like, and so again, it's just that self-awareness, but
Remap that. Remap that.
but
That thought.
which like I said, I've mapped it, but it's just on the bottom pile.
Right. I got you.
So
That makes sense.
and And so like I said, I have things like that. I have a list, you know, I have a bunch of things. You know, you have a
Yeah.
priority list, like a to-do list in life like this.
Yeah.
So I have my own to-do list to work on so much that I don't have time to focus on what everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let's you know, let me if I got some extra time, let's sit around and my kids, I told my kids I have a I forget a lot. So I would always leave the house. I'd leave my wallet, my phone, or I'd leave my keys. There's always something, you know what I'm saying?
It's
So
like,
I was
yeah.
like, one day I had to keep like driving back and forth. I would like drive out to the east side, I gotta drive back, you know what I'm saying, northwest side.
Oh my gosh.
Just drive back to the east side. And I was like, all right, enough of this, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I was like, so now I know I'm like, when I hit the door, it's just incorporated now. There's four things I have.
Mm-hmm.
Wallet, keys, chapstick.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. I was like, in this pocket is always my chapstick and my keys. In this pocket is always my wallet, my phone's in my hand, and my back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've just incorporated that into like just my everyday life, so that so now I can cross that. You know what I'm saying? I can
Mm-hmm.
follow that one or check that off.
Yeah.
You know,
You changed it because the inconvenience
the
of having to
inconvenience.
go back and forth. So people change. Humans, we change when the pain is great enough to change. So
Yeah.
in that instance,
When you've
it
suffered
was
enough
the
from
inconvenience.
It
Yeah,
becomes
yeah.
when
When you
it
suffer enough.
Yeah.
it becomes a part.
You
Even doing
change.
this,
Yeah.
even doing this, you know, man, I've been trying to do this for like years. I'm trying. To
I'm
do this
sure
for
we
a
all
while.
have some of that, but
And I'll tell you that I
Decluttering.
think one of the things that really kind of kickstarted that is, you know, for one, like you know, my kids are like, number one. Like that's everything I do.
mm-hmm.
And I heard you heard of Jordan Peterson?
Mm-hmm. I've read some of his books.
Jordan
I don't think
Peterson,
so.
man, I love this guy.
Partial
But
books.
you know, he was talking about he had kind of said something about you kind of can't fully understand love until you kind of had children, right?
Oh, mm-hmm.
And he kind of made that comment, and I was, you know, and
Yeah.
you know, I was skeptical. I'm skeptical of everything. Let me think about this, you know. And so one of the things that I do is when I have my kids every other week,
Mm-hmm.
the weeks that I have them, I don't do anything. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to work up to that. So you know, it's to the point like my friends don't even call me anymore. They're like,
Yeah.
"Hey man, yeah, we went out last night. I didn't even call you. I never had your kids." You know, and that's
Yeah.
just because I practice when I say like my kids come first. I practice my kids coming first. Like they don't
And
come
now
first.
your kids come first.
They don't come first like when something else doesn't like.
I got you.
You know,
Work
got
out.
you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got you.
you know, type thing. So
They always come
so one of the
first.
things
Yeah.
I think that's kind of accelerated even chasing like this pursuit is I have my kids, man, and I'm starting to see like we have like some of these situations going on in like some of these schools where you know kids are starting to carry like guns to school,
Mm-hmm.
kids are starting to carry weapons and knives to school,
Yep.
kids are fighting, you know,
Yep.
and I'm like, yo, like my kids are in this school now, you know what I'm saying? So I felt like I had to get off like the sideline because I'm not really I'm not really a social person, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like I have to create a safe space for them, you know what I'm saying? And you know, I don't know. I feel like I have a different opinion, a little different opinion than maybe most things say. So let's share it and see where it goes, you know, type
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
that's what kind of like sparks you know, kind of that.
That's why you created this podcast.
Yeah, the whole
And one of the reasons?
Yeah, the whole deface. Matter of fact, I'm gonna tell you, like the whole concept came. The concept came. It was when we told my daughter we were getting divorced. Broke me. You know what I'm saying? It jacked me up because it hurt her. And one of the things that um, one of the things that I hate, man, when we talk about kids is now I think we're getting comfortable. We're getting comfortable raising kids incorrectly, and I don't necessarily, you know, again, I don't talk about right and wrong, but I would know, I would challenge somebody to argue, you know what I'm saying, argue that.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
I don't think that you can sit here and say that. I use an example when you talk about plants. I said, man, you don't take a plant you don't take a seed, plant it, right, cover it up, and then a week later you scoop it up, put it in this pot over here. You know what I'm saying? And then it starts to sprout. Then you dig it up, and then you move it, and then you
Yeah.
put it, and you keep
Yeah.
moving it. Man, if you want a plant to grow optimally, you set it in a pot and you let it grow. You know what I'm saying? So it can understand the soil, because every time you move it, it has to reestablish itself. It has to reestablish itself. So what happens is there's no consistency, and
Right.
it stuns the growth. So what we're doing with these kids, man, is there's no consistency anymore. You know what I'm saying? Because they're constantly moving, and then on top of that, we have like the parents that are raising them are constantly moving. So there's just like this inconsistency. Like the soil's not even the same when they get back over here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think it's trying to correct a lot of, like I said, the whole Deface the Currency is just trying to correct a lot of the misconceptions, so nobody can say that they didn't know.
Okay.
So at this point in time, like it's a choice, but you can't say that you didn't know.
Okay.
But I don't know. I think we got way far away from why relationships fail. hey,
It was our relationship. Parental.
Yeah, but I think, and I
Friendships.
tell people, man, a lot of times when I talk, I'll be like, look, I can go forever.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons is, I think, is what we don't realize is all of this stuff is connected.
Absolutely, it is.
It's not just one thing or one piece. It's
Right.
all kind
Right.
of influencing
Yep.
each other.
Mhm. Yep.
So I think that's why it's easy. It's easy to
Chop it up.
It is.
be everywhere.
Yeah.
So, but man, I think we went way long. I tell people at work, I be like, yo, man, I'm long winded. So, hey, like, give me the peace sign.
I do that sometimes too. But my husband talks a lot,
Yo,
so
give
we
me the
get
peace
along
sign when
great.
you're ready, man. So, but I appreciate y'all for stopping by, man.
Yep.
This was a treat. This
Thanks
is
for having us.
yeah. Y'all ever want to come back anytime, man? Reach out.
Thank you. Thank you, Brooke.